If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
That's right. I'm going to roll, baby, roll. Mac, that is Jim Morrison, right?
Yes, it is.
Right? This is Frank Latirzo. Welcome to Glove Fist.
Yes.
Joined by Jack Hirsch, co-host and producer, Mac and the Jack and the Hat and the Boots promoter. Hello, Mr. Boots. How are you?
Let me explain why our producer Mac's going to be on for a little while before he has to go. Because we have a show, the Mac and Jack Sports Show. And lately, Mac has been getting very angry when he talks about boxing. When we plan what we're going to do for the show beforehand, he wants to talk about certain things, and he's getting madder and madder at Frank Latirzo. To paraphrase, Mac said Frank Latirzo's an enabler to prevent the best fights from taking place. Okay, guys like Frank Latirzo, and he doesn't want to hear any more excuses. He's fed up with Frank Latirzo's attitude, and he pinpointed it. I said, Mac, give me an example. He said he wants to see Mac Boots Ennis fight Terence Crawford. And guys like Frank Latirzo are making up excuses. Well, it doesn't make business sense for Crawford, and Mac isn't accepting that. Mac's fed up. You tell him, Mac.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a longtime boxing fan. I've done the show with Frank before. Me and Jack have done the show before without Frank. I'm not an expert by any means, but I follow boxing for a long time. And boxing has gone down the tubes. And the reason why it's gone down the tubes is because they don't make the best fights anymore. They don't take the two best people in any division and match them up anymore. They let it go down the line. They wait till they get old. They wait 4 or 5 years later. They don't take the prime athletes that are currently in their prime and fight like they used to. So now they want you to watch a boxing match that a champion like a Terence Crawford, one of the best in boxing, pound for pound, and they're going to match him up with a guy who has fought 12 times. So and then as I would think, Frank, who is an expert, loves boxing, has wrote about boxing for years, has been on networks talking about boxing, tells me
here it comes.
It doesn't make business sense. And the rebut I have to that is if Crawford and Boots Ennis fought right now, next week, say they didn't fight, say Boots didn't fight last a couple of days ago, and they fought, and it was a great fight. If it was a 10-rounder, if they were slugging at each other, if it, and I would imagine because it's Terence Crawford, it might even make pay-per-view, but say it doesn't because there's no market for it, according to Frank. But say it doesn't, and it's a great fight. Guess how much money they would make the next time they fought? They would make a ton of money because now Boots Ennis, who is at least the second best boxer in the welterweight division right now, and
he's the best because Crawford's no longer a welterweight, Mac.
Well, Crawford would have to drop
it. Crawford can make 147.
He'll never fight there again. He'll never fight at 147.
If the money was there, he would.
He sure would. And not only that, he went up. He went up one division. Boots is big enough to go up one division too. They could make the fight if they wanted to, Frank.
Okay, Mac. Here's my rebut. Okay, I can't really disagree with much of what you said, but in the world that we live in today in boxing, Crawford is looking for a legacy fight and big money fights. And Boots doesn't bring that. And Crawford has spent his whole career getting into the position that he's in. He has nothing to gain by fighting Boots, Mac. It's not a lot of money. and I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm telling you why. It's not a lot of money. Boots is good. If he loses his whole persona. And if he wins, people will say, who did you beat? Okay. But my issue with you is that you say Bud is afraid of Boots. That's where I have the issue. He's not afraid of Boots. It's a matter of business. And that's the world. Wait a second. I let you go on, Mac. That's not the world we live in. You want to talk about how boxing was back in the Muhammad Ali days and Roberto Duran? Okay. You're a big football guy. Look how much football has changed since then because it's a business.
You don't have to go that far back. Let's just go back to the Tyson, the Lennox Lewis days. Great fights, Frank. We're not going all the way back to the 70s here.
Mike Tyson played Lennox Lewis $5 million to step aside because he didn't want to fight him so he could fight Bruce Seldon. Is that business?
Could you imagine that if Tyson ducked some of the fighters that he fought and lost to?
He did. He ducked Lennox Lewis.
Oh, Tyson, no. That wasn't a big demand for Tyson-Lennox Lewis fight until much later on. Not at that time. Not by the 1990. Lennox Lewis, I saw his second pro fight in 1989 on the undercard of Tyson Carl Williams. That was in Atlantic City. It was Lewis's second fight. He was an 88 Olympic champion, and Tyson lost to Douglas in 1990. There was never big demand until about the time.
So wait a second, Jack. Tyson pays Lennox Lewis $5 million to fight. So there was a big demand for Tyson and Bruce Seldon. Is that what you're telling me? Tyson wanted no part of Lennox Lewis in 1996 or 97.
Riddick Bowe was Lennox Lewis's main target all along. That was his legacy fight. He's still angry to this day about it, Lennox Lewis, because even though he eventually fought Tyson when Tyson was a little past his best, it's not a true legacy fight for Lennox Lewis, knocking Tyson out, because people are going to say, well, he didn't knock out a prime Tyson. Riddick Bowe was the legacy fight Lewis missed out on. But people don't hold it against Lennox Lewis. They acknowledge his greatness, but he really wanted to earn it.
Well, the point is that Tyson paid step-aside money for a lesser fight, Jack.
I don't remember that, to be honest, Frank.
Jack, he paid. I'll send you the articles when we're done.
If you say he did, I'll take your word if you clearly remember that. I just have no recollection of that.
But Mac, it's a business today. Absolutely, Crawford and Boots is a great fight, but it's not going to happen.
It's a business that's falling on its face, and they're watching YouTube fighters, Frank. You talk about the NFL. You talk about the NFL. That's the most popular sport maybe in the world. You're comparing the NFL.
No, it is.
I'm going to tell you why these belts. We pay attention to back up Mac's point. Let's say it would be now the way it used to be with the 8 main weight classes. If that were the case, Crawford would be the world welterweight champion. Canelo would be the world middleweight champion. So the 2 fights that Crawford would have or would have to be made would be either he would jump up from welterweight to middleweight, the way Emil Griffith did with Dick Tiger, similar scenario, or he would have to defend against Boots Ennis. So one of those 2 mega fights would absolutely have to be made. But because you have all these different weight divisions and all these sanctioning bodies, guys could say, oh, I want to grab a belt. Who gives a darn they're grabbing an extra belt?
My issue is this, Jack, okay? I can't dispute what Mac is saying. Yes, Boots and Bud at 47 or 54, which neither guy has ever fought at, would be an epic fight. But Mac, I realize that in the world in which we live right now, July 15th, 2024, it's ridiculous to get upset about it because it's not going to happen until it's a big fight. These guys saw Mayweather push Pacquiao back for 5 years and end up making over $200 million. And that's what they're looking at.
Until people start getting more upset about this stuff, Raising Cain, and the older fighters and the older reporters and the older broadcasters and the older podcasters start complaining to the right places and broadcasting this stuff, it will never change, Frank.
Jack and Mac, and I think that they've done that. I just don't think they have the power to make that much of a difference.
I'll tell you right now, if they stop covering certain fights, they will have that power, Frank. If they're going to fight, if you're going to fight a guy that fought 12 fights, and listen, maybe he's a good fighter, I don't know. I know he's not in Crawford's class. It's not going to be pretty. Crawford's going to take him apart eventually in the ring. And there's a fight out there that could be something special, and you don't do it. To me, I'm not saying Crawford's scared. I think he's ducking somebody that would make him a more popular, a more legendary fighter, and he's doing himself a disservice.
Okay, I can accept that. I don't totally agree with it, but I don't think it's like Canelo avoiding the Benavidez fight. But I can see your point. But in closing, Mac, if they fought next at 147, A, who would be the betting favorite? And B, who would you pick, Bud or Boots? Bud would be the favorite. I'll tell you that.
You know something? I think the favorite would be Crawford. There's no doubt about that. I think he would be maybe. I'm not sure how big a favorite.
9-5 or something. 2-1, 2-1. I think
I agree.
Smart. They're not going to give 3-1, lay 3-1, 2-1 Crawford.
All right, so
Maybe.
it's 2-1. If I was a betting man with 2-1 odds, I would take Ennis. Do I think he'd beat Crawford? I don't know, but at 2-1 odds, I would bet that.
Okay. So, but you're not you won't make a pick.
Not now. If they were going to fight,
no.
Because it depends when they're going to fight. Are they going to fight next week? Are they going to fight next year? Are they never going to fight? You would have to take all that into consideration.
Crawford has to fight August 3rd against Israel Madrimov. At some point, like you said, Frank, Crawford's going to show some slippage. He's 36 years old.
He's going to be 37 in September.
Right. He has basically dominated every fight that he's had. He's given away a few rounds here and there, but that was kind of to figure out the opponent.
He's never been close to losing.
Right, exactly. He needs one fight for Crawford that resembles the Larry Holmes Tim Witherspoon fight, where he just gets by the way Holmes got by, and we look at him completely different. He's no longer number one pound for pound, and we wonder whether it would just be an off night, the opponent's style or whatever the darn reason is.
But he's never had that night.
We're waiting for a fight where he looks like he can be had. It might happen against Madrimov. He might be given a tough fight, and he knocks Madrimov out late in the fight, but he might get exposed. Kind of the way Jones was in the first Tarver fight. It could be the start of the decline, and we're waiting for it to happen. I don't know when it is. It's going to happen at some point, as long as he continues on. We know that. It might happen when he's age 38, 39. He might delay it, but if he's going to fight till age 40, 41, he's probably going to get beaten at some point, to definitely come close to being beaten on one or two occasions.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys.
Thanks a lot.
I think he's making a big mistake, and if the fight is great and they have a rematch and the other one wins, you got a trilogy there, and they'll both be set for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
Mac, anytime you and Jack want to gang up on me, just jump in. We'll do it again, okay?
Crawford could insist on a rematch. But we will both agree on this. Let's say Crawford decides, I'm going to accommodate this guy Boots Ennis. I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Now they sit down at the table to negotiate, and you and I both agree that Crawford holds all the leverage. In other words, he can demand the rematch clause, X amount of money, even if I
like
lose.
They did with the Spence fight.
Right, Boots can't demand any type of rematch clause.
Right.
If he wins, he's got to go at it again. Regardless, whatever amount of weight. So from that perspective, it maybe makes sense for Mac. If Ennis somehow did beat Crawford, I shouldn't say somehow because he's a legitimate threat, but if he beat Crawford, if they fought, a rematch would be big, big business that he beat, Crawford, them going at it again. That's just my thought. But then again, there's a school of thought. Maybe Crawford's just not a pay-per-view star. Maybe he hasn't caught on to the public at all. Maybe
he needs a dance partner, Jack. Some of them do. Holyfield did.
Maybe guys like you and I, to hardcore boxing fans, he only appeals to us. He doesn't appeal to the average sports fan. I don't know. But, part of it's the platform. Shakur Stevenson is leaving Top Rank, for example, but he had a great platform on ESPN. And Crawford's kind of left that platform. And since he left the ESPN platform, it hurts your popularity a little, even though he had the pay-per-view fight with Spence. But with that said, getting back to Boots Ennis, we talked about the comparison game going in against David Avanesian. And I think there's very little to choose between Crawford's performance against him and Boots's. They're pretty similar. I don't think you could take anything out of it. Oh, one looked better than against Boots than the other.
Jack, as I said before the show, and I think people that know me know that the two fighters in boxing I enjoy watching the most are one, Terrence Crawford, and two, Boots Ennis. I'm going to try to be objective here. I think Crawford comes out looking a little better than Boots because he fought him a year and a half earlier. He didn't get hit quite as much as Boots did. And Crawford knocked Avanesian out with one single shot. He knocked him unconscious for over a minute. Boots beat him up really good, and Boots showed that other than maybe Inoue and Crawford, Boots may be the next best offensive fighter in the game. But he hit him a lot, but he also took some good shots back. His legs did buckle for a second in the fifth round. He got caught with a good shot, but he weathered the storm. I didn't think any less of him, Jack, from this fight. I thought it was a good fight. If I have to pick, I think because of the way Crawford and look, one guy ended it after 5 rounds. The other guy ended it in the 6th. That was close. I said there wouldn't be a 6th round, so I know Ennis was pushing. I think Crawford did better, but I don't think it hurt Boots at all. What I will say this, though. After seeing that fight, without seeing Crawford against Magdramov, I'm more convinced now than I was this time last week that Crawford would beat Boots. And in all honesty, Jack, if I was managing Boots, I would yell for Crawford knowing he's never going to accept the fight. But I really don't want that fight. I want my guy to get a little more experience, be a little more active, and I want the other guy to get a little older. Turn the volume up, Jack.
I know what Eddie Hearn said. They want to clean up the 147-pound division, the welterweight division, then go up to 154, then face.
And that makes sense.
But if Crawford said, no, let's make the fight with Boots right now, Eddie Hearn won't have the power to overrule Boots. Imagine if Crawford said that and Boots backed away and said, okay, we'll fight next year, but let me take care of my other business after calling Crawford out. He's committed now, Boots, to if Crawford accepts. There's no turning back, even if they want to delay it a little bit. So, but with that said, I think Crawford was geared towards a Canelo fight. Now, what if, assuming Crawford beats Madrimov, and I know it's hard to assume Madrimov, I think, is somewhat of a threat to Crawford, somewhat. I mean, I'm going to pick Crawford. I'm confident Crawford will win. I don't think it's a lock. I don't think it's an absolute lock. But assuming Crawford wins, where does he go from there? I mean, Canelo's probably not fighting him next. He was hoping Canelo would take the big money offer from the Saudis so Crawford could fight him. Just think of it. What is there for Crawford exactly? Don't tell me he'll fight a guy like Sebastian Fundora. I mean, at junior middleweight, I don't want to hear about fights like that to pick up a belt or whatever.
Jack, if he can't get the fight with Canelo, I think he's going to try to get the belts at 154, which maybe Virgil Ortiz has one by the time he gets there. But I think that's what he's going to do. If he beats Magnomov, I think that's what he's going to do. Look, I think as much as I love Bud, I do think he has a little Mayweather in him where he wants belts and titles. And if he becomes undisputed and gets all the belts at 154, he's going to just say, okay, I've done that in 3 weight classes. He thinks that'll further or enhance his legacy. I think that's what he's about. And then if they offer him a ton of money to fight Boots at 154, I think he'll do it. But I think he wants to get some more hardware, Jack. I do think he's driven by that.
You know, you keep mentioning it, and I mention it from time to time too, the word legacy. I get the feeling, Frank, we're overrating what legacy means to a lot of these fighters. To some, it means a lot. Don't misunderstand me. Bernard Hopkins would talk about it all the time. You know, the word legacy, my legacy. But to a guy like Bud Crawford, you don't know whether legacy means a great deal to him. Of course, he's going to say, I'd love to go down as one of the greatest of all time. But yeah, I kind of wonder whether these guys think about it much in their spare time, how they're going to be rated in boxing history.
I think Bud's one of the guys that does do that, Jack, because from what I understand, he lives way below his means. He constantly talks about money not being the motivating factor for him because he says he wants a legacy, but he wants enough money where he can be comfortable the rest of his life. But I think he does want the legacy, and I think he looks at Mayweather that way. And I think when guys are undefeated, I think they think about the legacy more. Once they lose that then they look at the business and how much money they can make. I don't think that's the case with Bud, Jack, and I don't think he's going to fight that much longer.
I think it's what he does. I think he loves boxing. He's always in the gym, you know, in Nebraska, and they have a good thing going there with Bomac, all the different coaches and all the fighters that go there. I could see Bud Crawford being a trainer when his fighting day's over. I really can. You know, he just seems to be that type. But it's
Jack, what did you think of Boots' performance?
Well, as expected, no better, no worse. As expected, I expected total domination for the most part. Avanasian would do okay in small pockets and bother Boots, but he was never a threat. You always knew Boots was going to win. You wondered how long, you know, it would take. While I was watching Boots' fight, I was also visualizing how it would look if Crawford was opposite him. Boots with those long, effective jabs. Would he pile up points early in the fight? And I was thinking it's possible Crawford would miscalculate because Crawford's been known to give away 2-3 rounds.
I think he would definitely let Boots lead.
But if Boots got off to a 3-0 lead in rounds, now Crawford decides you got to start coming on. You know, it's kind of like a late rush where the fight could go the distance and Crawford is the much better guy by the end of the fight, but Boots may have put some rounds in the bank and might hold him off and win a tight decision. I could see that scenario. I'm not saying that would take place, but I absolutely could see that scenario. Boots winning 7 rounds to 5 by virtue of Crawford being lazy in the early rounds.
Miscalculating.
Like against Leonard. You know, that type of scenario.
What I saw was a guy, Jack, who throws a ton of punches. He can throw every punch in the book with accuracy, power, and from either side. Does he get hit sometimes? Yes. But guys that try to take your head off, Hearns, Leonard, Crawford, Robinson, they get hit sometimes. Mayweather didn't try to take your head off. He didn't get hit as much. But the guys that try to take your head off are the guys that will get hit. Boots showed from what we've saw the other night, he has a solid chin. Now, I was doing the same thing as you. I was trying to picture Crawford in the ring, and I saw Boots leading, Crawford countering, and all depending on how good Crawford's counters were, is how the fight would go. If he hurt Boots with a counter, which I think is what would happen, then I see the fight going his way. If Boots picks his spots and is measured with his aggression, but forceful with it, he might do what you say and get out to that nice lead. And Craig Wright, Boots versus Spence. I'm going to say Boots because after what I saw Spence endure almost a year ago, I just don't know if he comes back from that. If you give me the Spence that went into the Crawford fight, it's a 50-50 fight. But after the thrashing he took from Crawford, I don't think
Boots beats Spence. Do you have any doubts about it, Frank? Come on. Boots would be an
Jack, because I know that Boots will sit there and trade, I think it gives Spence a shot. But no, I would pick Boots. But it's not quite as much of a gimme as I thought. It's more of a gimme on my part that I think Spence is going to be less than what he was.
I think Spence would be a lot less than what he was.
Probably.
If he fought.
But Spence would never take that fight.
I hope Boots tries to have a star shine more by taking on the best opponents available. I don't want to see him dig up a Keith Thurman, for example, figuring, Thurman has a name, he has experience, this and that. I don't want to see that type of fight.
Well, who do you want to see him fight? If it can't be Crawford, who would you want to see him fight? I'll give you two names, Stanios and Ortiz.
Yeah, Ortiz would be a viable fight for sure. That would be.
How about Stanios?
Maybe Liam. I was going to say Liam Paro, but he would dominate that fight. I have a fight for you. Wow, this would really be intriguing, but I don't think they would take it. Teofimo Lopez could be a natural 147-pounder. Him and Boots, for example. Lopez not having to worry about making the weight, being strong. No one talks about a fight like that. But that would actually be a good one. But Lopez is probably fighting Brian Norman. Lopez is going to be fighting, in all probability, my sources tell me September 27th at Madison Square Garden, in all probability. Against Brian
Jack,
Norman.
I have the welterweight rankings up. I'm looking at the names.
Junior,
I don't know who Boots could fight where anybody would be happy.
Look at Frank. Look at junior welterweights and lump them in with the welterweights, because anyone who's a junior welterweight can fight at welterweight. And
I don't see it, Jack. Is there a junior welterweight alive who Boots could fight and beat, and you would say, "Wow, that was a great showing. He really proved something to me."
Him and Teofimo moved up. That's what I said.
He would mutilate Teofimo, and all we hear about is Teofimo's a real lightweight.
Yeah, listen. I mean, you get a guy, for example, it's not going to happen like a Jack Catterall if he beats Regis Prograis, could meet Boots. He would be moving up, though, a division, but that wouldn't be that appealing a fight. Listen, Boots could fight at catchweight. Let's forget these titles for a while. Match him with someone like who could probably get down to 154, whatever. Maybe a Chris Eubank, for example. It's a hard one. It's not easy to get opponents. Boots could move up to junior middleweight. Why not just move up? You're going to be moving up anyway. And you throw your hat in the ring and you fight Sebastian Fundora. If the fight could be made, just the thought.
I think that's plausible, Jack, but he's going to want to get, I think what Eddie Hearn said, I don't think he was BSing us. I think he wants to get some of the belts. But here's the thing that a narrative in boxing that I'm starting to see a lot, and they use it with Tank, and you're kind of using it with Boots. It's like you say, okay, I want to see him fight somebody good. So I go through the names of the welterweights, and we really come up with nobody, who we would really be happy. I'm looking at the names now. That guy Karen Chisnakian, he already beat him. He was supposed to fight Cody Crowley. That fell out. We wouldn't give him credit for Spence. Okay, he beat Roman Villa, who's in the top 10. Avanesian was right outside it. So who could he fight where he'll get props? And the same thing with Tank. Tank either has to fight Lomachenko or Stevenson to get props. My point being, there's not that many outstanding fighters around outside of the top 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5, that an elite guy, these elite guys, these super elite guys can fight that would make the public happy.
Yeah. Okay. But that's why going after the belts, like, who cares? But
the fighters care, Jack, and the fans do. I know you don't, and I don't as much, but they do.
Okay. Speaking of that belts and everything, there was some other fights over the weekend. If it's okay, we get to it. I saw Tevin Farmer against Raymond Maratala. That was an ESPN Plus show from Las Vegas. I give Tevin Farmer, who's from your patch, Philadelphia, a lot of credit. Mac, he could have been the chief support on the undercard on the boots, but Tevin Farmer, former RBF Junior lightweight champion, he wanted to get in the title picture again. So he took on the unbeaten Maratala, who's promoted by Top Rank, and it looked like he was going to beat him for a while. And a fight like that shows how a corner can help a guy or hurt a guy. He was boxing beautifully, Tevin Farmer, through 6 rounds. He gets back to his corner, and they say, remember our fight plan. And they tell him Maratala is gassed. They're telling Tevin Farmer he's exhausted. They're basically telling Tevin Farmer he's ready to be knocked out. Take it to him. But he wasn't gassed. I could see that. Maratala was frustrated. He wasn't able to catch Farmer, who was boxing beautifully.
He is a hell of a boxer.
He stays in the pocket now. And Maratala turns the fight around. I mean, come on. It's like, and then the referee deducts a point from Farmer for holding. He did one Farmer a few times, and Farmer was holding a little bit blatantly, locking up the arm. So I don't know whether I'm going to blame referee Thomas Taylor. I hate when the point's taken away in a close fight. I hate it, Frank. But sometimes the referee has to. Otherwise, the fighter gets a free pass to do whatever the heck he wants, in the ring. And Maratala overtakes Farmer. He wins a decision. Then Maratala, they're asking him who he wants to fight. Listen to this. He's a lightweight. They ask Tank Shakur. He says, yeah, I want to fight them, but the guy I want to fight is Dennis Berinchek, who's the WPO lightweight champion. They always do that. They go for the weakest belt holder. Because I'm going to tell you, Maratala would get picked apart by Shakur Stevenson. Maratala could fight his best fight. He doesn't beat Shakur Stevenson or Tank Davis. Forget about it. Dennis Berinchek, who knows? I mean, maybe there's a chance there, but it didn't quite happen.
I didn't see the Farmer fight, Jack, but I like him. Sometimes, he can underwhelm a little bit. I know he has a pretty good boxing brain. I'm a little disappointed to hear his corner gave him bad advice like that.
That's my opinion, listening to that. They gave him a wrong strategy to use, put it that way, okay?
Well, was he chasing a knockout?
No, he wasn't chasing Maratala was the aggressive fighter moving in. And Farmer just needed to keep boxing from the outside.
And what did he do? You said, what did he do?
He started to stay in the pocket rather than move side to side and box. He, stayed, all of a sudden stayed.
So to me, that is kind of chasing the knockout, and that's not your style.
No, well, but they were telling him that Maratala was exhausted, and he wasn't exhausted. That was the thing about it. Gil Clancy once said, and he was referring to the Meldrick Taylor, Julio Cesar Chavez fight, never tell a fighter to do something he's not capable of doing. Round 12, when the bell rang to start round 12, Meldrick Taylor was a very tired fighter. You can't tell him to go in there and knock out an iron, chin Julio Cesar Chavez. I don't remember whether the corner told him that, but you tell a fighter to do what he's capable of doing at that point. Don't make him do something, logically he won't be able to do. And don't lie to him about an opponent. If you want to say an opponent is tired because you want to give your guy a surge of adrenaline, okay, I'm all for that. But if your guy's in command of the fight, don't start telling him, the guy's finished. Just go in there and knock him right out, because you're going to get.
I can see that. Trouble. But I do like the Angelo Dundee mindset. We need this round. And as far as Meldrick Taylor in that fight, Jack, Meldrick was beating Chavez up more so than any fighter had ever done that. And I really believe, now I never talked to him about this, but I believe he wanted to win that fight by a stoppage and didn't want a decision victory and thought that he had Chavez at the edge of the cliff. And, at the end of the day, it cost him, even though I think the fight was stopped prematurely. The bottom line is chasing that and going at it with him. That was Chavez's game. He was taking a lot of big shots. It ended up costing him the fight.
Oh, man. Oh, before the former Maratella fight, that was elevated to the main event. Janibek Hanuli, okay, who holds a couple of the sanctioning body belts. He failed to make weight, and reportedly he fainted trying to make weight. He was dehydrated. In the hospital. And that's the dangers of making weight. And imagine he did somehow make weight and he didn't faint and went through with the fight. And my opinion, Frank, if a fighter can't make weight for a championship fight, I would ban him from ever fighting in that division again. Okay? He has to
one time, if he missed it one time?
Yeah, you miss it one time. First off, you miss it one time, he wasn't able to go through with the fight, and that shows the dangers. You can't make it, okay? And I don't want to hear that they can make weight late on, because we're just going to get excuses, like Ryan Garcia with Tank. Ryan Garcia said before, no, I'll be strong. I know how to make weight. And after the fight, he used it as an excuse for getting beat by Tank. He was so weakened. I don't want to hear it. The guy.
Well, Jack, you're.
Alem Hanuli fainted, Frank. Oh, by the way, if I ever say Mac, excuse me, you better correct me. Because everyone listening, I do a show with Mac. I'm used to saying Mac. So if I say it, I mean Frank. But okay.
Not a problem, Jack. Jack, your buddy, Don Majeski, who sometimes doesn't see eye to eye with me, actually made a very good comment about the Janibek fight when he said 16 weight classes and fighters still can't find a division that they can make the weight in. And I think that he hit that on the head. And we know why they do that. They try to suck down. They try to win fights on the scales. And apparently it took too much out of Janibek. And, he's probably going to go to 168. And we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I would ban him from the weight, but I would strip the title.
He's a heck of a fighter. He goes to 168. He's a threat to Canelo. He's a legitimate threat to beat Canelo. And, the latest Canelo news, whatever, he's going to make his announcement in this,
September 14th.
Yeah, Canelo's no longer the face of boxing.
You see who his opponent's going to be, right?
Well, I heard Chris Eubank, Edgar Berlanga, right?
They said Berlanga is in the running, as I said he would be.
Oh, I've said it. So yeah, but it is a complete farce. It is a joke of a fight, Frank. It is a joke of a fight. I don't want to hear about Berlanga's record, and I'm calling you out for having the nerve to say Berlanga and Chris Eubank. You're not sure who you'd pick. You're in La La Land if you think that. Berlanga is I'm going to give him a compliment.
They're never going to fight, Jack.
He's a better than average fighter. Okay? You know what Belanga's like? He's like a student in school who's claiming he's brilliant, and then you look at his transcript, and he has an average of like a C plus. But meanwhile, you heard stories. He's competing with Harvard and Yale in academics. Come on, C
No,
plus.
Berlanga is going to get the fight, whether he deserves it or not. But I have one for you. If that fight is made, do I get it?
No, I wouldn't get it. No, unless the Saudis got it and gave you an amazing undercard. Canelo delivers his early knockout, which he hasn't, had for a while. And Canelo's not going to buy this time to make Berlanga look a little good, because Berlanga can punch a bit with the right hand, the chopping right hand. That's his lottery ticket punch. It's an extreme.
No, my question is: you accuse me of getting some of this stuff? Do you think
that? I wouldn't get Canelo?
Do you think I will get sucked into getting it?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But Canelo knocks Berlanga out within 5 rounds, 3 to 5 rounds, I think. Yeah.
I agree.
Maybe 2 rounds. Canelo's in a predicament because if he blows Berlanga out too easily, people are going to get mad at him and say what a farce it is. But
yes.
So the best scenario is for Berlanga to give him a competitive fight and Canelo to knock Berlanga out in 7 to 8 rounds. And maybe Berlanga hits Canelo a good punch. No, this is the best scenario, Frank, and you're going to love this example. That it turns into another Joe Frazier, Manuel Ramos fight that's been lost in time and history. Remember that fight?
Absolutely. Okay. June 24th, 1968, Madison Square Garden.
A lot of people won't remember that fight. It's lost in time. Why don't you just tell us about Joe Frazier, Manuel Ramos?
Ramos was about 6'3", had a big right uppercut. I think he was on a big win. He was on a big win streak coming into the fight. Lifted Frazier up with a real nice uppercut in the first round. Joe came back and just ground him down. By the end of the first round, Manny was on his way out. Second round, Frazier dropped him, I think, twice. And when he got the second time, he went, that's it. No more.
It went 2 rounds, but people were kind of happy because Manuel Ramos went punch for punch and rocked Frazier with 1 punch. But Joe
rocked him with the right uppercut. Yes, he did.
And it was exciting for 2 rounds. So Berlanga could somehow hang in, and it's a shootout for 2 rounds. And he staggers Canelo, and then Canelo eventually, gets Berlanga at the end of the second round and stops him. Maybe people are going to be content, and Canelo's going to say, oh, he's one of the hardest punches I ever faced. I got to admit, he hurt me with that right hand. Then Canelo could get away with selling the fight. But if
I think it'll go 6 or 7 rounds if it happens. Canelo's not a fast starter. He'll be a little leery. I think it'll go 6 or 7, but here's the key, whether I get it or not. You know what happens in September, right? My second favorite sport starts, college football. I live for those college football Saturdays in the fall. Now, I don't know what the slate is. The 14th is probably week 2 or 3. I don't know if the conference games will start, but there will be enough going on in September that it might keep me away from that fight.
Okay.
Because there's no intrigue. If that's announced, if Canelo Berlanga is September 14th, I can't see anything that'll make me want to see that fight.
Yeah. Listen, I'm on the same page with you. There was another fight that took place over the weekend. I didn't see it. Did you?
I didn't either. Chocolatito
stopped Robert Barrera, in 10 rounds. Chocolatito reportedly looked good. The fight was in Nicaragua. He hadn't fought there in about a decade or so. So it was kind of like a homecoming. But Chocolatito's a big enough name where it looks like they're going to match him with Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez. But then again, Francisco Estrada has a rematch clause he can invoke to fight Bam Bam first. So it might get delayed to Chocolatito.
And Estrada has a history with Chocolatito himself.
Yeah, well, but I doubt if.
Well, no, I'm just saying that, like, they have a history.
Possible.
But Chocolatito, Jack, at 37 at that style, I hope he doesn't fight Bam. I don't think it ends well.
Yeah, but I didn't see his fight, but the fights before that. But he doesn't look like a shot fighter, Chocolatito. But we'll see. He's a big name. It's a fight that could be made. Chocolatito has to go in with an outside chance in that fight. You can't dismiss his chances completely, even at his age. Great fighters like that could possibly surprise us. We haven't seen the evidence yet that Chocolatito is way past it. He's somewhat past it, but he might be.
I just think that, Jack, that's a bad matchup. That's a bad matchup for him right now. At that weight, at bantamweight, that's a bad matchup.
Danny Jacobs announced his retirement, Frank. When Danny Jacobs, a cancer survivor, made a comeback from cancer, his first fight back, I was in his dressing room doing a story about the night, about him and everything. He was gracious to let me be in the dressing room. And Danny Jacobs, one of his goals was to make it to Canastota to the Hall of Fame. And he's not going to get inducted. He falls short of that. He had two big legacy fights in which he performed very well, but he lost. He came a little short. Triple G and Canelo. He lost reasonably close decisions to both. The decisions were legitimate that went against him, but you got to get over the top and win those fights to be a Hall of Famer, to be a superstar. You can't just be competitive and run the guys close.
I'm looking at his record now. I don't think he gets in, Jack, but I wouldn't be totally surprised. Gabe Rosado, Chavez Jr., Derenchenko, Mora, Quinlan, Mora again, Truex. No, Ishii Smith.
You're making, when you mention the names, you make a case for him to maybe be considered to be put on the ballot. But then again, you have fighters like Iran Barkley who aren't in. Did you put you don't elevate a Danny Jacobs over like an Iran Barkley, but
I wouldn't be surprised if Barkley got in down the road.
Yeah, perhaps.
Jacobs was only stopped once in 5 losses.
Yeah.
And 2 of his losses were in his last 2 fights.
But I got the feeling with Danny Jacobs, he was a touted amateur star, and they thought he could conceivably be a superstar in boxing, and he never got to that. He rather just had a very good career on balance. But there was this certain softness about him, and maybe that's the wrong word to use. Once he started making money, it didn't seem like fighting was a priority. You got the feeling Danny just wanted to make enough money. He wanted a legacy. He did want that legacy, but he didn't strike me as being a grinder, like who would always be in the gym. And I even and this was confirmed to me. I'm not going to say who told it to me. One person told it, and I checked with someone who was very close to Danny Jacobs, and he confirmed it to me. Between fights, and this is Danny in his prime, he just hardly ever trained. He would just train hard for the fight. He trained very hard for the fight, but in between fights, he didn't do very little. He didn't really show up in shape. You know what I mean? Like the camp, like ready to work hard. A lot of fighters are like that, Frank.
How about him beating Sean Porter in the amateurs at middleweight?
Yeah, I mean, that's the amateurs. I mean, what do you want me to say? But
I'm just saying the fact that Sean Porter was a middleweight as an amateur and then dropped 2 weight classes as a pro.
Yeah, Sean Porter is another one. If we did a comparison, he might make his way on the ballot, soon someday for the Hall of Fame. I don't look at him as a Hall of Famer. Frank, I look at Hall of Famers is you have to get over the top in certain big fights. Certain big fights, you just have to get over the top. Porter did beat Danny Garcia at the Barclays Center, a good win. He beat Adrian Broner when Broner was still good. Okay, there were some good wins.
He beat Ugas too.
Yeah.
And he stopped Andre Berto. Stopped Malinalgi. Beat Devin Alexander. He has some good wins, Jack. But in all honesty, I don't think he makes the cut. As much as I like him and root for him, he's not a Hall of Famer.
No, I don't think so, because we lived through the Sean Porter era. We watched it carefully. We have a feel for it. But, if he came up during another era, chances are he gets in the Hall of Fame. Like, you look at a fighter like Curtis Coates, who's in the Hall of Fame. And Curtis Coates, they're pretty good very good welterweight. But, you question whether he should be a Hall of Famer. Strictly on his fighting career. He was a trainer later, so if you want to throw on that body of work on top of it, it makes a better case.
I have a great hypothetical fight for you.
Yeah.
Sean Porter versus Shane Mosley at 147.
Oh, Mosley at his best, I like, definitely. Definitely Mosley at
really?
his best. Mosley at his best, I thought was
I think at his best was a lightweight.
Until he lost to Vernon Forrest. Listen to this, okay? One of the writers from my publication, Boxing News, did an imaginary welterweight tournament. Fighters something from the 1970 or something until when we did the story, maybe in 2008 or whatever the year was. I forgot the darn year. We did it. No, it was the late 90s, right before Mosley fought Forrest. I think it was early 200s or whatever. And one of the matchups, hypothetically, was Jose Napoles against Shane Mosley, when Mosley was an unbeaten star. I picked Mosley by decision, and the two other writers differed. Jack Obermeyer picked Napoles, and the other one picked Mosley too. Mosley won, and Obermeyer was ticked off at me. What are you doing? You're picking Shane Mosley, blah, blah, blah. So after he loses to Vernon Forrest, I spoke to Graham Houston, former editor of, Boxing News, outstanding writer, a knowledgeable boxing guy. And I asked him who would have won. He said, Napoles would have won 9 rounds to 3. But I said, but if I asked you that before the Vernon Forrest fight, what would you have said? He said, wow, that would have been a tough one to pick. Maybe I would have picked Napoles on a split decision, but that would have been a real hard one to pick at that point. But so Mosley's career was a little disappointing when you think of it. I know he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's not an all-time great by any measure, Shane Mosley. He's in no.
No, but he could live with all the all-time greats though. But he just wasn't not quite that level, but none of them beat him. I mean, stop him. He goes tooth and nail, Jack, with mostly the best. I mean, would Sugar Ray Leonard stop him? I don't know. He beat him, but would he stop him? I don't know.
No.
He had a heck of a chin.
Yeah, Mosley would have been tough to stop. I mean, I guess Vernon Forrest was his boogeyman.
He couldn't beat Forrest.
Yeah.
And then, Jack, he did pick some tough fights, too. He did fight everybody.
And
he didn't duck anybody.
Yeah, Winky Wright was a bad style. But it's what it was in that particular fight. But
he fought Vargas twice. He fought he fought Cotto. Very close fight when Cotto was on the ascend. And at one time, if you remember, the debate was between Mosley and Roy Jones, who was top pound for pound in the late 90s.
I think most people, you pretty much settled on Jones at the time. Now, his son was the one who beat Danny Jacobs, Shane Mosley Jr. Now, Shane Mosley Jr., I guess he's improving. I didn't see the Danny Jacobs fight. There was other boxing that night. I haven't seen.
I didn't see it either.
I don't want to see a faded version of Danny Jacobs getting basically shut out by a guy he probably would have beaten, in his prime. Because I've seen enough of Shane Mosley's earlier fights. He's a decent fighter, but very far from being elite. And even
Shane Jr., right? He'll make a living, but that's about it.
Yeah, even taking into consideration that he's improved and so on. I mean, he's not going to be one of these top of the line fighters. Oh, Shakur Stevenson is a free agent now, and he's shopping around his services,
trying to get a fight with Zepeda.
Yeah, well, he'll get if he signs with Golden Boy. Oscar basically said you don't get to fight if you don't sign with Golden Boy. And then
we wonder why boxing's falling apart.
But if you're Zepeda,
or continues to fall apart.
That De La Hoya saying Shakur Stevenson is one of the best fighters in the world. I could turn him into a superstar, and I'll match him with Zepeda if he signs with us. Meaning, if I'm Zepeda, I'm thinking, wait, Oscar's looking to build up Shakur. He thinks Shakur is better than me, and so on. And it's a fight that Oscar can make that fight. That's an attractive fight. That is an attractive fight, William Zepeda.
Well, the style clash makes it real attractive.
Yeah, but what's the end game with Shakur? The end game may have been maybe just stick with Top Rank, $3 million a fight, 5 fights. Find out within what time frame they're going to take place, have that contractually agreed to, fight on the ESPN platform where people get used to you, and it might take years for Shakur to get the mega fight, but you have to keep winning.
Jack, we only have a couple minutes left, and I was curious to get your opinion on something that I posted last week. Mike Tyson and Larry Holmes. Who fought better opposition?
I saw that post, and Frank, I would have to sit down and look at both of their records. Fought better opposition. It's hard to say because I remember Holmes after he beat Kenny Norton. I mean, how good did he elevate the opposition? Did he make Jerry Cooney into more than what he actually was? By Cooney coming up with a great fight. Consider that point, If Cooney gets blown out, we don't look at Cooney in the same manner we might do now, figuring, he had talent, this and that. Tyson did fight talented guys. Tony Tucker, I would give an edge to Holmes off the top of my head.
But it's close. It's close. You can make it. I can see a case for either guy.
Off the top of my head.
Who had the better career?
Holmes.
And that is because
charismatic career. He was consistent the whole time. Tyson, after 1990, it was Holmes has had the better, more consistent, career. I feel he didn't have the ups and the downs. He went 48-0, then he lost to Spinks, then a second act. He did beat Ray Mercer, and then he fought easy guys on the second act.
He gave Holyfield a tough fight.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Who ranks higher historically?
I would give a little edge to Holmes there. I would have to say because Holmes was very consistent. I give Holmes an edge in all three. All three, I would give Holmes, okay? And I would rate him higher than Tyson. But I'm adamant on this point, styles and everything else. If they fought 10 times, Tyson would beat them all 10 times.
All 10?
All 10 and knock him out 6 or 7 of those times. Tyson at his absolute zenith. Tyson on an off day when his head's not there, maybe a Bone Crusher Smith fight, he could get beat, conceivably by Holmes if Holmes is at his best there. If both guys show up at their absolute best, Tyson beats him every time. I believe what Customato said about Holmes. Holmes was hittable. Holmes had the heart of a lion, took a good punch. You hurt him, he'll come right back on you and hurt your back. The Holmes of the Kenny Norton fight would have gotten obliterated by Tyson, obliterated the way he did later on. And I don't think that was a washed up version of Holmes that got knocked out by Tyson. I don't want to hear Holmes wasn't in shape. I thought it was a past his peak Holmes, but still a decent version of Holmes. But that's an argument for next week, I guess.
Okay. I think I agree. I think Tyson has a style advantage, but I think I would pick Holmes if they fought at their absolute best. Give me 82 Holmes against 88 Tyson. I would probably pick Holmes, but I wouldn't bet on it. All right, Jack. Great show. I guess we'll be back next week and discuss more boxing.
We'll discuss the